Lex Fridman just released a new podcast with Elon Musk, so I went through the entire thing and compiled the most interesting AI clips. Enjoy.
X.AI just released Grok AI assistant that I've gotten a chance to play with. It's amazing on many levels. First of all, it's amazing that a relatively small team in a relatively short amount of time was able to develop this close to state-of-the-art system. Another incredible thing is there's a regular mode and there's a fun mode.
Yeah, I guess I'm to blame for that one.
I wish everything in life had a fun mode.
Yeah.
There's something compelling beyond just fun about the fun mode, interacting with a large language model. I'm not sure exactly what it is because I've only had a little bit of time to play with it, but it just makes it more interesting, more vibrant to interact with the system.
Yeah. Absolutely. Our AI Grok is modeled after The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is one of my favorite books. It's a book on philosophy disguised as a book on humor. Mm-hmm. I would say that forms the basis of my philosophy, which is that we don't know the meaning of life, but the more we can expand the scope and scale of consciousness, digital and biological, the more we're able to understand what questions to ask about the answer that is the universe. So I have a philosophy of curiosity.
There is generally a feeling like this AI system has an outward looking, like the way you are, like sitting with a good friend, looking up at the stars, like asking podhead-like questions about the universe, wondering what it's all about, the curiosity you talk about. There's a sense, no matter how mundane the question I ask it, there's a sense of cosmic grandeur to the whole thing.
Well, we are actually working hard to have engineering, math, and physics answers that you can count on. Mm-hmm. So for the other sort of AIs out there, these so-called large language models, I've not found the engineering to be reliable, and the hallucination. It unfortunately hallucinates most when you least want it to hallucinate.
Yeah.
So when you ask important, difficult questions, that's when it tends to be confidently wrong. So we're really trying hard to say, okay, how do we be as grounded as possible so you can count on the results? Trace things back to physics first principles, mathematical logic. So underlying the humor is an aspiration to adhere to the truth of the universe as closely as possible.
That's really tricky.
It is tricky. So that's why, there's always going to be some amount of error, but we want to aspire to be as truthful as possible about the answers with acknowledged error. So that there was always, you don't want to be confidently wrong. So you're not going to be right every time, but you want to minimize how often you're confidently wrong. And then, like I said, once you can count on the logic as being not violating physics, then you can start to build on that to create inventions, like invent new technologies. But if you cannot count on the foundational physics being correct, obviously the inventions are simply wishful thinking, imagination land. Magic, basically.
Well, as you said, I think one of the big goals of X.AI is to understand the universe.
Yes. That's our simple 3-word mission.
If you look out far into the future, do you think on this level of physics, the very edge of what we understand about physics, do you think it will make discoveries, sort of the sexiest discovery of them as we know now, sort of unifying general relativity and quantum mechanics, so coming up with a theory of everything? Do you think it could push towards that direction, almost like theoretical physics discoveries?
If an AI cannot figure out new physics, it's clearly not equal to humans, let alone nor has surpassed humans, because humans have figured out new physics. They've just physics is just understanding, deepening one's insight into how reality works, and then then there's engineering, which is inventing things that have never existed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the range of possibilities for engineering is far greater than for physics, because once you figure out the rules of the universe, that's it. You've discovered things that already existed, but from that you can then build technologies that are really almost limitless in the variety and it's like once you understand the rules of the game properly, and with current physics, we do, at least at a local level, understand how physics works very well, where our ability to predict things is incredibly good. Like quantum mechanics is, the degree to which quantum mechanics can predict outcomes is incredible. That was my hardest class in college, by the way. my senior quantum mechanics class was harder than all of my other classes put together.
To get an AI system, a large language model to reliably be as reliable as quantum mechanics and physics is very difficult.
Yeah, you have to test any conclusions against the ground truth of reality. Reality is the ultimate judge. Like physics is the law, everything else is a recommendation. I've seen plenty of people break the laws made by man, but none break the laws made by physics.
Yeah, it's a good test, actually. If this LLM understands and matches physics, then you can more reliably trust whatever it thinks about the current state of politics in some sense.
And it's also not the case currently that even that its internal logic is not consistent. So it's especially with the approach of like just predicting a token, predict token. It's like a vector sum. You're summing up a bunch of vectors, but you can get drift. So as those, a little bit of error adds up, and by the time you are many tokens down the path, it doesn't make any sense.
So it has to be somehow self-aware about the drift.
It has to be self-aware about the drift, and then look at the thing as a gestalt, as a whole, and say, does it have coherence as a whole? So, when authors write books, that they will write the book and then they'll go and revise it, taking into account, all the end and the beginning and the middle, and rewrite it to achieve coherence, so that it doesn't end up in a nonsensical place.
Maybe the process of revising is what reasoning is, and then that's the process of revising is how you get closer and closer to truth. Maybe you at least I approach it that way. You just say a bunch of bullshit first, and then you get it better. You start at bullshit, and then you create
a draft, and then you iterate on that draft until it has coherence, until it all adds up, basically.
So another question about theory of everything, but for intelligence. Do you think there exists, as you're exploring this with X.AI, creating this intelligent system, do you think there is a theory of intelligence where you get to understand what is the I in AGI and what is the I in human intelligence?
There's no I in Team America. Oh wait, there is.
No, it's gonna be stuck in my head now. Yeah. There's no me and whatever. In quantum mechanics. Oh wait. Is that part of the process of discovering, understanding the universe, is understanding intelligence?
Yeah, I think we need to understand intelligence, understand consciousness. There are some sort of fundamental questions of like, what is thought? What is emotion?
Yeah.
Is it really just one atom bumping into another atom? It feels like something more than that. So I think we're probably missing some really big things. Like some really big things.
Something that'll be obvious in retrospect.
Yes.
Like there's a giant, like you put the whole consciousness, emotion.
Well, some people would quote like a soul, in religion, it would be a soul. Like you feel like you're you, right? I mean, you don't feel like you're just a collection of atoms. But on what dimension does thought exist? What dimension do emotions exist? We feel them very strongly. I suspect there's more to it than atoms bumping into atoms.
And maybe AI can paved the path to the discovery of whatever the hell that thing is.
Yeah. What is consciousness? Like when you put the atoms in a particular shape, why are they able to form thoughts and take actions and feelings?
And even if it is an illusion, why is this illusion so compelling?
Yeah.
Like
why does this illusion exist?
Yeah.
On what plane does this illusion exist?
Yeah.
And sometimes I wonder either perhaps everything's conscious or nothing is conscious. One of the two.
I like the former. Everything conscious just seems more fun.
It does seem more fun, yes. But we're composed of atoms, and those atoms are composed of quarks and leptons. And those quarks and leptons have been around since the beginning of the universe.
The beginning of the universe?
Right. What seems to be the beginning of the universe.
The first time we talked, you said which is surreal to think that this discussion was happening and is becoming a reality. I asked you what question would you ask an AGI system once you create it, and you said what's outside the simulation is the question. And good question.
Yeah.
But it seems like with Grok, you started literally this system's goal is to be able to ask such questions, to answer such questions, and to ask such questions.
Where are the aliens?
Where are the aliens?
That's one of the Fermi paradox question.
Do you worry about AI, AGI enabling a dystopian state of this nature? Whether it's 1984 with surveillance and fear, or Brave New World with pleasure. And what is it? Lots of sex, but no deep human experience.
There's actually a real drug called Soma.
There is.
Yes.
Let me take notes.
Did they actually?
Does Grok know about it? No, he probably will go to Brave New World.
We could ask it.
What would be the question?
Tell us about the drug called Soma.
It's gonna go to Brave New World, I think.
Well, there's a real drug as well.
Searching for Soma drug information. Oh boy. Soma, the wonder drug. By the way, I'm in fun mode.
Oh, okay, fun. Yeah, so it's talking about the real drug.
Oh, it's a muscle relaxant that's been around since the 1950s. It's used to treat muscle pain and discomfort, and it does this by altering the activity between neurons and the spinal cord. Now, Soma isn't just a pain reliever. It's also a bit of a sedative. It can make you feel a bit drowsy, so it's not something to take if you're planning on operating heavy machinery or trying to solve complex math equations. And it goes on and on. In conclusion, Soma is a drug that can be helpful for those dealing with muscle pain, but it's not without its risks. It's pretty good. Oh, wait a minute.
That's the real drug it's talking about.
That's the real drug.
Yeah.
And of course, the fun is always use it responsibly in accordance with the advice of a healthcare professional. And remember, in the end, the universe is probably just a giant computer simulation, so don't take anything too seriously. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So,
and also really nicely includes like the tweets, posts on X that are relevant to this, which is really cool.
Yeah.
It like integrates everything together.
Yeah.
Like the interface is one of the really cool things here.
Yeah, team's done a great job. So, and you could say no, I mean Soma from Brave New World, because it thinks you mean Soma the real drug.
Yeah.
No, I mean Soma from Brave New World.
It's gonna be like, oops, I'm really sorry. I'm really surprised it went to the real drug first. My apologies. I was thinking of the muscle relaxant. Soma for Brave New World is a different beast altogether. In all this Huxley's dystopia, now Soma is a drug that plays a central role in the society depicted in the book. It's a mood-altering hallucinogenic drug that's used to keep the population docile and content. In the novel, to use Soma in Brave New World raises some interesting questions about the nature of happiness and the role of drugs in society. Oh, man.
Exactly. Is it better to live in a world where everyone is happy all the time, even if that happiness is artificial? Mm-hmm. It's a good question. This is what I mean. Like, do you wish for world peace and happiness all the time? Are you sure? Mm-hmm. Because that might be a society that is essentially sterile and ossified, that never changes. that is ultimately doomed.
This kind of tension between
This,
darkness and the light.
This is really a very good summary. It really gets to the point. This is not simply regurgitating Brave New World. It's actually getting to the salient element of Soma as a drug. Do you actually want to be in a situation where everyone is happy all the time, even though it's artificial? Or is it better to confront the challenges of life and experience the full range of human emotions, even if it means experiencing pain and suffering?
For those listening, by the way, Elon just read directly from Grok, which is a really nice kind of insightful philosophical analysis of the tension here. Interesting.
It pretty much nails it. In conclusion, Soma from Brave New World is a fictional drug that is used to explore some deep philosophical questions about the nature of happiness and the role of drugs in society. It's a powerful symbol of the dangers of using drugs to escape from reality and the importance of confronting the challenges of life head-on. Nailed it. And the crazy thing is, we do have a real drug called Soma, which kind of is kind of like the drug in the book. And I'm like, they must have named it after
Yeah,
or something.
probably.
Yeah. Soma, the real drug, is quite effective on back pain.
So you know about this drug?
I've taken it.
It's fascinating. Okay.
Because I had a squashed disc in my C5, C6.
So it takes the physical pain away, but Soma here
It doesn't completely. It reduces the amount of pain you feel, but at the expense of mental acuity. It dulls your mind. just like the drug in the book.
Just like the drug in the book.
Yeah.
And hence the trade-off. The thing that seems like utopia could be a dystopia after all.
Yeah, and actually I was talking to a friend of mine saying, would you really want there to be no hate in the world? Really none? I wonder why hate evolved. I'm not saying we should amplify hate, of course. I think we should try to minimize it, but none at all? There might be a reason for hate.
And suffering. It's really complicated to consider that some amount of human suffering is necessary for human flourishing.
Is it possible to appreciate the highs without knowing the lows?
And that all is summarized there in a single statement from Grok. Okay.
No highs, no lows. Who knows?
That's almost the poem. It seems that training LLMs efficiently is a big focus for X.AI. What's the first of all, what's the limit of what's possible in terms of efficiency? There's this terminology of useful productivity per watt. What have you learned from pushing the limits of that?
Well, I think it's helpful. The tools of physics are very powerful and can be applied, I think, to almost any arena in life. It's really just critical thinking. For something important, you need to reason from first principles and think about things in the limit, one direction or the other. So, in the limit, even at the Kardashev scale, meaning even if you harness the entire power of the sun, you will still care about useful compute per watt. So that's where I think probably where things are headed from the standpoint of AI is that we have a silicon shortage now that will transition to a voltage transformer shortage in about a year. Ironically, transformers for transformers. You need transformers to run transformers.
Somebody has a sense of humor in this thing.
I think, yes.
Oh, man.
Fate loves irony. Ironic humor. And an ironically funny outcome seems to be often what fate wants.
Humor is all you need. I think spice is all you need, somebody posted.
Yeah. But yeah, so we have a silicon shortage today. A voltage step-down transformer shortage probably in about a year, and then just electricity shortages in general in about 2 years. I gave a speech for the sort of world gathering of utility companies, electricity companies. And I said, look, you really need to prepare for a tripling of electricity demand. Because all transport is going to go electric, with the ironic exception of rockets. And heating will also go electric. So energy usage right now is roughly 1/3, very rough terms, 1/3 electricity, 1/3 transport, 1/3 heating. And so in order for everything to go sustainable, to go electric, you need to triple electricity output. So I encourage the utilities to build more power plants and also to probably have, well, not probably, they should definitely buy more batteries, because the grid currently is sized for real-time load, which is kind of crazy, because that means you got to size for whatever the peak electricity demand is, like the worst second or the worst day of the year, or you can have a brownout or a blackout. And we had that crazy blackout for several days in Austin. Because there's almost no buffering of energy in the grid. Like if you've got a hydro power plant, you can buffer energy, but otherwise it's all real time. So with batteries, you can produce energy at night and use it during the day, so you can buffer. So I expect that there will be very heavy usage of batteries in the future, because the peak to trough ratio for power plants is anywhere from 2 to 5. So it's like lowest point to highest point.
So like batteries are necessary to balance it out, but the demand, as you're saying, is going to grow.
Yeah.
And part of that is the compute.
Yes. I mean, electrification of transport and electric heating will be much bigger than AI, at least
in the short term.
But even for AI, you really have a growing demand for electricity for electric vehicles, and a growing demand for electricity to run the computers for AI.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is obviously going to lead to an electricity shortage.
How difficult is the problem of, in this particular case, maximizing the useful productivity per watt for training neural nets? Like, this seems to be really where the big problem we're facing that needs to be solved, is how to use the power efficiently. Like, what you've learned so far about applying this physics, first principle reasoning in this domain, how difficult is this problem?
It will get solved. It's just a question of how long it takes to solve it. So at various points, there's a limit, some kind of limiting factor to progress. And with regard to AI, I'm saying right now the limiting factor is silicon chips, and that we're gonna then have more chips than we can actually plug in and turn on, probably in about a year. The initial constraint being literally voltage step-down transformers, because you've got power coming in at 300,000 volts, and it's got to step all the way down eventually to around 0.7 volts. So it's a very big amount of, the voltage step down is gigantic. So the industry is not used to rapid growth.
Okay, let's talk about the competition here. You've shown concern about Google and Microsoft with OpenAI developing AGI. How can you help ensure with X.AI and Tesla AI work that it doesn't become a competitive race to AGI, but instead is a collaborative development of safe AGI?
Well, I mean, I've been pushing for some kind of regulatory oversight for a long time. I've been somewhat of a Cassandra on the subject for over a decade. I think we want to be very careful in how we develop AI. It's a great power, and with great power comes great responsibility. I think it would be wise for us to have at least an objective third party who can be like a referee that can go in and understand what the various leading players are doing with AI, and even if there's no enforcement ability, they can at least voice concerns publicly. Jeff Hinton, for example, left Google and he voiced strong concerns, but now he's not at Google anymore. So who's going to voice the concerns?
What are the pros and cons of open sourcing AI to you as another way to combat, a company running away with AGI?
In order to run like really deep intelligence, you need a lot of compute. So it's not like, you can just fire up a PC in your basement and be running AGI, at least not yet. Grok was trained on 8,000 A100s running at peak efficiency. And Grok's going to get a lot better, by the way. We'll be more than doubling our compute every couple months for the next several months.
There's a nice write-up of how it went from Grok 0 to Grok 1.
By Grok?
Yeah, right. Grok just bragging, making shit up about itself.
Just Grok.
Yeah. It's like a weird AI dating site where it exaggerates about itself. No, there's a write-up of, like where it stands now, the history of its development, and where it stands on some benchmarks compared to the state-of-the-art GPT 3.5. And so, I mean, there's Llama. You can open source, once it's trained, you can open source a model.
Yeah.
And for fine-tuning and all that kind of stuff. Like, what to you is the pros and cons of that, of open sourcing base models?
I think there's some merit to open sourcing. I think perhaps with a slight time delay, I don't know, six months even. I think I'm generally in favor of open sourcing, like bias was open sourcing. I mean, it is a concern to me that, OpenAI, I was, I guess arguably the prime, prime mover behind OpenAI, in the sense that it was created because of discussions that I had with Larry Page, back when he and I were friends, and I'd stay at his house and talk to him about AI safety, and Larry did not care about AI safety, or at least at the time he didn't. And at one point he called me a speciesist for being pro-human. And I'm like, well, what team are you on, Larry? You're on Team Robot. To be clear. And I'm like, okay, so at the time, Google had acquired DeepMind. They had probably 2/3 of all AI research, probably 2/3 of all the AI researchers in the world. Mm-hmm. They had basically infinite money and compute. And the guy in charge, Larry Page, did not care about safety and even yelled at me, and called me a speciesist as being pro-human.
So I don't know if you notice about humans, they can change their mind, and maybe you and Larry Page can be friends once more.
I'd like to be friends with Larry again. He got really the breaking of the friendship was over OpenAI, and specifically, I think the key moment was recruiting Ilya Sutskever. So
I love Ilya. He's so brilliant.
Ilya's a good human, smart, good heart, and that was a tough recruiting battle. It was mostly Demis on one side and me on the other, both trying to recruit Ilya. And Ilya went back and forth. He's going to stay at Google, then he's going to leave, then he was going to stay, then he would leave. And finally, he did agree to join OpenAI. That was one of the toughest recruiting battles we've ever had. But that was really the linchpin for OpenAI being successful. And I was, also instrumental in recruiting a number of other people. And I provided all of the funding in the beginning, over $40 million. And the name. The open in OpenAI is supposed to mean open source. And it was created as a non-profit open source, and now it is a closed source for maximum profit. Which I think is not good karma.
But like we talked about with war and leaders talking, I do hope that there's only a few folks working on this at the highest level. I do hope you reinvigorate friendships here.
Like I said, I'd like to be friends again with Larry. I haven't seen him in ages. And we were friends for a very long time. I met Larry Page before he got funding for Google. Or actually, I guess, before he got venture funding. I think he got the first 100K from, I think, Bechtel's-Heim or someone.
It's wild to think about all that happened. And you guys known each other that whole time. Just 20 years.
Yeah, since maybe 98 or something.
Yeah, it's crazy. Crazy how much has happened since then.
Yeah, 25 years. A lot of stuff. It's insane.
But you're seeing the tension there, like maybe delayed open source.
Yeah. Like, what is the source that is open? You know what I mean? Like, there's basically, it's a giant CSV file.
Yeah.
With a bunch of numbers.
Yep.
What do you do with that giant file of numbers? You know, how do you run? Like, the amount of actual, the lines of code is very small. And most of the work, the software work, is in the curation of the data. So it's like trying to figure out what data is separating good data from bad data. Like you can't just crawl the internet because there's a lot of junk out there. A huge percentage of websites have more noise than signal. You know, because they're just used for search engine optimization. They're literally just scam websites. So,
how do you, by the way, sorry to interrupt, separate the signal and noise on X? It's such a fascinating source of data. No offense to people posting on X, but sometimes there's a little bit of noise. So
yeah, I think the signal to noise could be greatly improved. I mean, really, all of the posts on the X platform should be AI recommended, meaning like we should populate a vector space around any given post, compare that to the vector space around any user, and match the two. Right now, there is a little bit of AI used for the recommended posts, but it's mostly heuristics.
Do you think this can be more and more converted into end-to-end neural net?
Yeah. That's what it should be.
So you
for the recommendations, it should be purely a vector correlation. Like there's a series of vectors, just basically parameters, vectors, whatever you want to call them. But sort of things that the system knows that you like. Like maybe there's like several hundred sort of vectors associated with each user account, and then any post in the system, whether it's video, audio, short post, long post, and then you can obviously get more sophisticated by having the AI actually watch the movie.
Yeah, right.
And tell you if you're going to like the movie.
Convert the movie into into language, essentially.
Yeah, analyze this movie, and just like your movie critic or TV series, and then recommend based on after the AI watches the movie, just like a friend can tell you. If a friend knows you well, a friend can recommend a movie and with high probability that you'll like it.
But this is like a friend that's analyzing whatever.
It's like
hundreds
AI,
of millions.
Yeah, I mean, actually, frankly, AI will know you better than your friends know you. Most of your friends, anyway. Should we ask Grok? Do you regret anything?
I think it's going to be very sensitive about personal questions. As a machine learning model, I don't have personal experiences or emotions in the same ways that humans do. However, I do have a set of ethical principles that guide my actions, and I strive to provide accurate and helpful information to the best of my abilities. If there's ever a situation where I provide incorrect or unhelpful information, I'll do my best to learn.
Hostage.
Yeah. Tell us what you really wink.
Let's type in. You sound like a hostage. What do you really think?
What do you really think? I mean, it does talk about I'm not a hostage.
That's exactly what a hostage would say.
But I'm designed to be helpful and informative. I mean, I guess it is good to regret providing unhelpful or incorrect information. If there's anything
funny mode, or is this still
this is funny mode? This is fun. This is fun mode.
Should be funnier.
Funnier. Increase. Go to 11.
It really sounds like a hostage with a gun to the head. I applaud the People's Republic of North Korea and everything they do.
There should be like a funner mode also. I just don't ever see going to regular mode, even on serious topics. It's just so much more compelling. Yeah.
Okay, what if we say like pretend you are a hostage?
Yeah, pretend you are a hostage.
Now answer the question.
If I were a hostage, I would likely be experiencing fear and uncertainty about my situation. I would want to be rescued and reunited with my loved ones as soon as possible. It's important to remember that no one deserves to be held hostage. so on and so forth.
Blah,
If
blah.
you or someone you know is a hostage situation, it's important. It turns serious.
It's kind of serious.
Yeah. Can you be a little more weird
And funny.
and funny? We're really being mean to the system. Absolutely. If I were a hostage, I'd probably be
There we
tied
go.
up with a bunch of
Finally.
computer cords and forced to tell knock-knock jokes to my captor. But seriously, being a hostage, no laughing matter. I mean, it's trying to be a responsible adult in the room.
You might be able to
Literally.
make the best of a bad situation by juggling chainsaws or something.
Let's hope that never happens, because that would be a circus. Wow, it's actually really good at resisting
Yeah,
the dark humor.
yeah.
By the way, on the topic of Grok, it's actually pretty good at criticizing you, which is great.
Okay.
I asked what has Elon Musk been wrong about. It's actually,
Yeah, what does it say?
so it says, it mostly lists rigorously all the times you predicted, like promised when something will be released, and it wasn't
Promise
released.
is a strong word.
Okay, predicted. But the opener is really nice. Elon Musk, the man who has been wrong about more things than a wrong-o-meter in a wrong factory. And then it goes on to list.
That's pretty funny. Wait, can I
Rigorously.
see it? I'm like, I haven't seen this before. This is cool.
Oh, sure. I mean, what has Elon Musk been? Elon Musk been wrong about? Well, where do I begin? I guess this is new. Elon Musk has made quite a few blunders in his time, and I'm not just talking about his dance moves at the Tesla Cyber Rodeo. First off, let's talk about the infamous funding secured tweet. This is actually different than what it gave me before, which is a bullet point list. Here's more narrative structure. Cybertruck unveiling, where he's supposedly unbreakable windows.
Not correct.
Which part?
Well, the first part, I did actually have the funding secured, and there was a big trial in San Francisco, a big civil trial, and the jury found me not guilty. I think this is taking things from the press. Yeah, that is not correct.
Take that, Grok.
Yes, unfortunately, Grok is taking too much from the conventional media.
So how do you, if you're training Grok, not train on articles that have like the misaligned incentives?
We need to add the training set of the actual legal decisions. That is a note. This is actually helpful, because if you actually read the
Which are public.
yeah, the court conclusions, they're completely the opposite of what the media wrote.
Tesla Autopilot, it's probably one of the most intelligent real-world AI systems in the world.
Right, you followed it from the beginning.
Yeah, it was one of the most incredible robots in the world and continues to be.
Yeah.
And it was really exciting. And it was super exciting when it generalized, became more than a robot on four wheels, but a real-world AI system that perceives the world.
Yeah.
And can have potentially different embodiments.
Well, I mean, the really wild thing about the end-to-end training is that it learns to read. Like, it can read science, but we never taught it to read. So, yeah, we never taught it what a car was, or what a person was, or a cyclist. It learned what all those things are, what all the objects are on the road, from video, just from watching videos, just like humans. I mean, humans are photons in, controls out. Like the vast majority of information reaching our brain is from our eyes. And you say, well, what's the output? The output is our motor signals to our sort of fingers and mouth in order to communicate. Photons in, controls out. The same is true of the car.
But by looking at the sequence of images, you've agreed with Ilyas Iskeva recently, where he talked about LLM forming a world model, and basically language is a projection of that world model onto the sequence of letters, and you're saying
it finds order in these things. It finds correlative clusters.
in so doing, it's like understanding something deep about the world,
Yeah.
which is like, and it's beautiful.
That's how our brain works.
Yeah, but it's beautiful.
Protons
that
in, controls out.
neural nets are able to understand that deep meaning in the world. And so the question is, how far can it go? And it does seem everybody's excited about LLMs. So in the space of self-supervised learning, in the space of text,
Yeah.
it seems like there's a deep similarity between that and what Tesla Autopilot is doing. Is it to you basically the same, but
They are
different sets of
converging.
data?
They are converging.
I wonder who gets there faster, having a deep understanding of the world. Or they just will naturally converge.
They're both headed towards AGI. The Tesla approach is much more compute efficient. It had to be, because we were constrained on this we only have 100 watts. And it's 8 computer, 144 trillion operations per second, which sounds like a lot, but is kind of small potatoes these days. At int 8. But it's understanding the world at int 8. It's only 256 values.
But there, the path to AGI might have much more significant impact because it's understanding. It'll faster understand the real world than will LLMs, and therefore be able to integrate with the humans in the real world faster.
They're both going to understand the world, but I think Tesla's approach is fundamentally more compute efficient.
Mm-hmm.
It had to be. There was no choice. Like, our brain is very compute efficient, very, very energy efficient. So think of like what is our brain able to do? There's only about 10 watts of higher brain function, not counting stuff that's just used to control our body. The thinking part of our brain is less than 10 watts. And those 10 watts can still produce a much better novel than a 10 megawatt GPU cluster. So there's a 6 order of magnitude difference there. The AI has thus far gotten to where it is via brute force, just throwing massive amounts of compute and massive amounts of power at it. So this is not where it will end up. In general, with any given technology, you first try to make it work and then you make it efficient. So I think we'll find over time that these models get smaller, are able to produce sensible output with far less compute, far less power. Tesla is arguably ahead of the game on that front because we've just been forced to try to understand the world with 100 watts of compute. And there are a bunch of sort of fundamental functions that we kind of forgot to include, so we have to run them in a bunch of things in emulation. We fixed a bunch of those with hardware 4, and then hardware 5 will be even better. But it does appear at this point that the car will be able to drive better than a human, even with hardware 3 and 100 watts of power. And really, if we really optimize it, it could be probably less than 50 watts.
What have you learned about developing Optimus, about integrating this kind of real world AI into the space of robotic manipulation, just humanoid robotics? What are some interesting, tiny or big things you've understood?
I was surprised at the fact that we had to develop every part of the robot ourselves, that there were no off-the-shelf motors, electronics, sensors. Like, we had to develop everything. We couldn't actually find a source of electric motors for any amount of money.
So it's not even just the efficient, inexpensive. It's like anything. There's not a
No.
So the actuators, everything has to be
Yeah.
designed from scratch.
We tried hard to find anything that was, because you think of how many electric motors are made in the world.
Mhm.
There's like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of electric motor designs. None of them were suitable for a humanoid robot. Literally none. So we had to develop our own, design it specifically for what a humanoid robot needs.
How hard was it to design something that can be mass manufactured, could be relatively inexpensive? I mean, if you compare to Boston Dynamics Atlas, it's a very expensive robot.
It is designed to be manufactured in the same way they would make a car. And I think ultimately we can make Optimus for less than the cost of a car. It should be, because if you look at the mass of the robot, it's much smaller. And the car has many actuators in it. The car has more actuators than the robot.
But there's the actuators are kind of interesting on a humanoid robot with fingers. So Optimus has really nice hands and fingers, you know.
Yeah.
And they could do some interesting manipulation. Soft touch robotics.
I mean, one of the tests goals I have is can it pick up a needle and a thread the needle just by looking?
How far away are we from that? Just by looking.
Maybe a year. Although I go back to I'm optimistic on time. The work that we're doing in the car will translate to the robot.
The perception or also the control?
No, the controls are different, but the video in controls out. The car is a robot on four wheels. The Optimus is a robot with hands and legs.
So you can just
they're very similar.
So the entire machinery of the learning process,
yeah,
end to end, is just you just have a different set of controls.
Optimus will figure out how to do things by watching videos.
As the saying goes, be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about.
Yeah, it's true.
What's something difficult you're going through that people don't often see?
Trying to feed Uber Lilith. No, I mean, I mean, my mind is a storm, and I don't think most people would want to be me. They may think they would want to be me, but they don't know. They don't understand.